Episode 5 of Euphoria Season 3 is mainly about power and exploitation. Almost every storyline in the episode revolves around people trying to gain control over someone else, profit from someone else, or survive under someone else's authority. What makes the episode interesting is that success and danger are constantly tied together. Characters get closer to money, influence, or opportunity, but those same things also make their situations more unstable. Nobody is really moving toward freedom. They are just moving deeper into systems that demand more from them. The episode also focuses heavily on performance. Characters are constantly presenting versions of themselves to other people, whether online, in relationships, or in business. But the further those performances go, the harder it becomes to separate image from reality. Cassie's storyline shows how quickly online attention can turn into a business. At the start of the episode, she and Maddy are treating her content almost like a full production. Maddy handles the strategy while Cassie becomes the product being sold. The growing subscriber count gives Cassie validation, money, and a sense of importance that she has been chasing for a long time. But the episode also makes it clear that this success changes how she sees herself. The fantasy sequence where Cassie imagines herself as a giant walking through the city is symbolic of ego and visibility. For the first time in a long time, she feels powerful. She's no longer waiting for approval from one person. Thousands of strangers are now validating her every day. At the same time, the scene is intentionally excessive and unrealistic. That matters because it shows how distorted her self-image is becoming. Her sense of value is now tied directly to attention and visibility. Maddy continues to stand out because she understands how these systems work better than most of the other characters. She recognizes that influence, beauty, and attention can be turned into money, and she knows how to market people. Unlike Cassie, Maddy usually approaches these situations practically. She sees online fame less emotionally and more strategically. This is why Brandon becomes important. He understands that Cassie is valuable, but he also understands that Maddy is the one helping shape that value. His attempt to separate Cassie from Maddy is really about control. If he can isolate Cassie, he gains direct influence over both her image and her income. Cassie almost falls for this because Brandon tells her exactly what she wants to hear. He frames Maddy as just an assistant, which feeds into Cassie's growing ego and insecurity at the same time. One of the clearest ideas in this episode is how people begin measuring themselves through profit. Cassie's growing success changes the way others treat her. Nate suddenly becomes supportive because she's making money. Brandon becomes interested because she has influence, and Maddy values her because she's marketable. Very few interactions in Cassie's storyline are based on genuine emotional connection anymore. Most are transactional in some form. This connects to a larger theme in Euphoria. The show often explores how identity becomes tied to consumption and presentation. In this episode, that idea becomes more direct. Cassie isn't just presenting herself online anymore. She's turning herself into a brand. Nate's storyline continues showing the collapse of his authority. Earlier in the season, he still acted like someone trying to maintain control over his life and image. Now he's becoming increasingly dependent on other people, especially Cassie. The fact that he encourages her relationship with Brandon is important because it shows how desperate he is financially. His support no longer comes from love or even manipulation alone. It's tied to survival. The second attack from Naz's men reinforces this loss of control even more. Having his ring finger cut off is important because it's directly connected to ideas of marriage, commitment, and status. Losing it right after his relationship with Cassie becoming increasingly transactional feels intentional. Instead of building a stable adult life, Nate's life is becoming more fragile underneath the image he tries to present. Rue's storyline in this episode is built around suspicion. After the robbery, Alamo's group starts questioning who can be trusted. Rue becomes the obvious target because she's already acting differently and asking unusual questions due to the DA pressure. The scenes with Bishop are especially important because they create a constant sense of fear around Rue. Bishop barely needs to threaten her directly. His behavior alone creates intimidation. Her failed attempt to get Lori incriminated shows another important idea. Informants in crime stories often imagine they can outsmart everyone, but the episode makes it clear that things are much messier than that. Rue isn't controlling the situation. She's constantly adjusting to pressure coming from multiple directions. Jules' storyline continues exploring performance, but in a more emotional way. Her relationship with Ellis is built on fantasy and roleplay, but the episode shows the limits of that arrangement. Ellis wants control over how Jules exists within his life. The moment he suspects another man might be involved, his behavior changes completely. This reveals the contradiction in their relationship. Ellis wants freedom for himself while still expecting loyalty and emotional exclusivity from Jules. Lexi's storyline focuses on frustration and compromise. She clearly doesn't want Cassie involved in her professional world, especially because Cassie manipulates the situation by using her maiden name. Cassie actually performing well during the audition complicates Lexi's feelings even further. It would be easier if Cassie failed completely, but instead the episode suggests she may genuinely have some ability. That creates a more uncomfortable dynamic because Lexi can't fully dismiss her anymore. The conversation between Maddy and Alamo is strange but important. Despite coming from completely different worlds, they immediately understand something about each other. Both are interested in managing people who can generate money. Both understand image, presentation, and influence. This scene connects different parts of the episode together. Whether it's crime, entertainment, or online content, people are constantly being treated as products. Maddy recognizing potential business opportunities with Alamo's dancers shows how blurred these worlds have become. The ending scene with Rue digging the hole is one of the strongest symbolic moments in the episode. Alamo wants Rue to understand how serious her situation is. But symbolically, the scene feels larger than that. Throughout the season, Rue has been sinking deeper into criminal systems, lies, and survival tactics. The hole visually represents that progression. She has dug herself into something that's becoming harder and harder to escape. The fact that only her head is left above ground is important too. She's technically still alive and present, but almost completely trapped. Alamo approaching on horseback with a mallet adds to the intimidation, but the scene works more because of the uncertainty. The episode ends before we know exactly what will happen, forcing us to sit with the fear and vulnerability that Rue is feeling. By the end of the episode, almost every storyline reaches a point where trust is breaking down. Cassie and Maddy's partnership becomes unstable because ambition starts outweighing loyalty. Nate continues losing control over both his body and his future. Jules and Rue still struggle to be fully honest with each other. And Rue's position inside Alamo's operation becomes more dangerous than ever. The final image of Rue buried in the ground summarizes the episode well. Everyone in this episode is trying to rise socially, financially, or emotionally. But the deeper they move into these systems, the more trapped they become. And by the end, Rue is the clearest example of that reality. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.